Disclaimer: crypto investments are highly speculative and involve significant risk of loss. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Always do your own research and invest wisely.
The everything bubble. How cryptos like EOS will weather this storm. What happens when you combine likely overbought equities with the relatively low consumer confidence and a likely goal for the Federal Reserve to usher in a great reset? I don't believe you need to be Elon Musk to know that this probably is not going to end well for the everyday average consumer, and the forces that are at play in this next economic crisis are very powerful and will likely result in everything in some way being affected in the next couple of years. In this article I intend to go over my reasoning why I believe we are in a bubble, the economic ramifications of the popping of this everything bubble, and how cryptos like EOS could help the average individual to weather the coming economic storm. Okay, now let's get started. With the weaknesses in the US economy, the prospects for the dollar's future seem bleak. However, before knowing with absolute certainty that America is on the verge of a currency crisis, one can pose two hypothetical questions. First, is there any significant threat to the dollar's status as the world's universal reserve currency? And second, how would the dollar do if today's global asset and credit market bubbles burst? In previous years gone by, there was no real threat to the dollar's international currency reserve status. The world has gone through their ups and downs of financial rises and falls many times before in the past, and the dollar has generally always managed to weather the storm. But in this particular case things may be different. The first and obvious difference is that, in the past there was never any real alternative to the dollar, because as the saying goes, the dollar may be a sickly horse, but it's the least sickly horse in the stable. But in recent years, with the rise of cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin and EOS particularly, for the first time in recent human history there may be a real challenger to the US dollar supremacy as the world's reserve currency and store of value. I'm not saying that this will likely happen overnight, but as we've seen increasingly more desperately drastic economic policies being made into reality, I think it's safe to say that the future of the dollar in its current form is anything but certain. Equally worrying is the fact that there is no chance of a transition in US economic strategy anytime soon. The Federal Reserve has consistently stated that it plans to hold interest rates at historic low levels and continue to extend its balance sheet indefinitely. The dollar bears are right in arguing that by reducing the country's savings rate, the extraordinarily high US fiscal deficits would cause the country's external deficit to widen ever further. Around the same period, very low interest rates in the United States do not have enough of a return for international buyers to keep buying the currency. Dollar bears claim that the combination of a larger external deficit and a lack of motivation for foreign parties to keep their dollar accounts healthy has created a dollar crisis. Today many capital market participants are waiting for a Weimar-style hyperinflation to propel equities markets to dizzying new heights. We are increasingly approaching the point of no return in terms of money production, and new stages of continued fiat printing could occur within the next coming years. Unfortunately for buyers, this stock market boom is unlikely to repeat itself. In reality, it has already occurred over the span of many years, and the party is likely over. Most of the positive activity within the current stock market is happening within the tech stock sector, which has made tremendous financial gains since the pandemic has begun. But the natural question to all this is, how long can all of this continue to go on? Is what we are seeing in the tech sector true gains, or is it simply being powered by the increased discretionary income of buyers, made possible by stimulus checks? The main challenge for stocks is that the past key support pillars for equities has vanished. The recent bailouts will potentially put a stop to the practice in the future, ensuring that equity prices may fall before central banks continue to move to buy stocks directly. Even so, certain asset prices would most likely continue to decline over time, although at a slower pace, especially when you factor in that the crisis has obliterated the trillions of dollars in loans that have been fueling company share values by buybacks over the last few years. Companies have been abusing central bank repo loans to artificially inflate market prices for years in the past, and the valuations have been ridiculous in the last 3 years alone, as opposed to the marginal profits of these same firms. Much of the money was squandered, and most of these businesses are still buried in debt. When you consider all of these factors, this paints a bleak picture for the continued prosperity at the US economy. and this everything bubble, when it pops, will likely take most of the world with it. With the rise of cryptocurrencies, the world for the first time now has a chance to avoid the fate of all such currencies when they become overextended due to bad financial practices. And also consider, if just the fact that there is now an alternative will create the circumstances for a self-fulfilling prophecy. Programmable cryptos in particular have the highest likelihood of consumer mass adoption in terms of stock market investors looking for financial products that they are accustomed to within the traditional market, combined with the fact that programmable cryptocurrencies like EOS not only offers the ability to create such services, but also makes the innovation of new services that much more simpler and easier to create, with its ability to offer low latency and low cost transactions. Combined with having enough capital liquidity to absorb the significant potential capital influx that will likely happen in the future, I believe that the EOS mainnet occupies a sweet spot that will be very attractive for future investor refugees, fleeing the old traditional markets, but ultimately only time will tell. To all EOS holders, EOS will weather the coming storm.
Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please donate, and if you would like to read, listen to, or watch more of this kind of content, please visit us at www.cryptoapologetics.com. See you next time. Take care.